You're now looking at persistence of memory. Pardon me. Actually, the title of a classic, uh, I should say, uh, let's back up. Persistence of memory is actually a painting done by Salvador Dali. It's, I believe, it hangs in the New York Museum of Modern Arts at this particular juncture. Be that as it may, I posted on Facebook. I will be giving a dissertation or a short lecture on COVID-19 and what it's all about. This book, Persistence of Memory, was actually published in 1977. I've been at coronavirus research since 1963. This publication is now on Amazon.com, and it's been there for, past year and a half, couple of years. But be that as it may, the point I want to make regarding not this volume per se, but the very essence and substance of it. The substance has to do with what's called ribonucleic acid, or RNA, which is referred to as the messenger to DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid. And essentially, the COVID-19 virus is simply ribonucleic acid, or RNA, that is the messenger for DNA. In other words, all the information that DNA molecule has is placed there or transferred there by way of RNA, or ribonucleic acid, to DNA, which is deoxyribonucleic acid. The essence, the inspiration for this came after reading and learning of Dr. Otto Warburg, who actually won the Nobel Prize in 1930 for his oxygen cancer connection. Well, there's definitely an oxygen coronavirus connection, and more specifically, an oxygen connection between COVID-19 virus. Be this as it may, we go on to say that in 1962, the two Nobel laureates for discovery of DNA and RNA, Dr. James Watson and Sir Francis Crick. That's further inspiration for the writing of this Persistence of Memory. What we're faced with is RNA. We'll have to go back 1.56 billion years when the Earth's atmosphere was toxic. Methane, carbon dioxide, sulfuric acid, and there was no free oxygen. In other words, there was a non-presence of oxygen. RNA existed perhaps a billion years before DNA. Well, it's by way of RNA that all the information that's placed in DNA is done by the messenger RNA. For example, RNase tells deoxyribonucleic acid, says, look, make me a blade of grass, make me a squirrel, make me an elephant, and eventually make me a human. etc., etc., etc. Think of the form of life, any form of life. It consists of RNA and the DNA virus. I'm sorry, RNA and the DNA molecule. Well, first of all, there's no, in this molecular structures, there's no evolutionary sequence. But it was actually Charles Darwin in 1859 that gave us the origin of species and the descent of man. And what occurs is, it's actually, like I say, the information which is transferred from RNA to DNA, what life forms to make. But perhaps maybe 3/4 or perhaps 1 billion years later, the Earth's atmosphere will change. What will occur is oxygen will begin to appear on Earth. Oxygen is a deadly enemy to COVID-19. Now, survival of the fittest is the essence of Darwin's work, The Origin of Species and Descent of Man, published in 1859. To go a step further, not only is it survival of the fittest is the essential theme of Darwin's work. Now, who's going to survive? COVID-19? Well, life forms, humans. The word that's utilized more often than not is not survival of the fittest, but mutations. Now, mutation is just a substitute word, or word substitution for survival. Now, the virus wishes to survive. Humans wish to survive. Who's going to win this war? Well, let's take a look at it. Now, initially, Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx were actually utilizing what's called the classic theory, or the classical physics, classical biology, and just classic science, period. But that's been outmoded. It's the same as saying, by analogy, we once had horse and buggy, and now we have automobiles. The same goes for this small talk, is that we're not in a world of classical physics or classical biology. We're in the world of what's called quantum mechanics. Some of the most notable: Albert Einstein, Niels Bohr, Werner Heisenberg, Erwin Schrödinger, Wolfgang Pauli, Max Planck. I can go on, giving you the substance or the persons who are actually most responsible for the coming of quantum mechanics or quantum theory. Albert Einstein accepted quantum mechanics, but rejected what's called the Copenhagen interpretation of quantum mechanics, because it left out free will. COVID-19 has free will. This is a known fact. A drop of water has a free will. Protons have free wills. Photons have free will. So free will was left out of the Copenhagen interpretation of what's called quantum mechanics, or quantum theory, to be more precise, quantum theory. Because the term quantum mechanics takes you to the notion of mechanics. And it's not really mechanics. It's a biological phenomenon at best. Now, I've developed what's called a simple therapeutic model for destroying or killing COVID-19. I'm not going to mention it here for reasons. I'm not a medical doctor. I know nothing of medical science. But I must say, as a mathematical, philosophical mathematician, that through perception differs from apperception. With what we're dealing is a phenomenon that is given to us, presented to the public by the classical model of physics and biology. COVID-19 does not follow the classical model of physics and biology, but it follows a quantum model, quantum mechanics. This is a known fact. Now, it keeps changing. Perhaps this week, it's been said by the Surgeon General that this will be one of the toughest weeks or 14 days that we've ever faced regarding COVID-19. The reason is it's mutating. Mutating is a quick evolutionary fix where changes is not a disease, it's information that's transferred to DNA to create a number of different diseases. Now, this is a fact, but they utilize the term mutations. Well, if you can vaccinate against COVID-19, you could vaccinate against a shadow, or you could vaccinate against a mirror image. I can be vaccinated, but looking in the mirror image, I can't vaccinate that mirror image. So that's essentially what we're dealing when we talk about vaccinations. Vaccinations just won't work. And the reason for that is a person has a different ontological status, a different ontology than a shadow. A mirror image has a different, it's a difference between the person casting the image. Well, vaccinate against an image, a quantum model. Furthermore, there was a movie that came out, I believe, back in the early 70s, just before the publication of my work, The Andromeda Strain by Michael Crichton, a classic work, a blockbuster movie, and it actually, he didn't get into it, but I do in this work. There's what's called the Einstein-Rosen bridge from the Andromeda Galaxy to the Milky Way. And in my estimation, my mathematical model says it took approximately 130 million light years to move those three stars, Alpha Centauri, into the Milky Way. And that's how the virus actually made its way into the Earth's atmosphere. Now, bear in mind that the Earth's atmosphere is 78% nitrogen. COVID is 100% nitrogen. So, the other 20% is oxygen. The 2% that's left over are what's called escape elements: hydrogen, helium, argon. Those are all escape elements. For example, if you were to breathe boiling water, the steam from boiling water, the hydrogen atom will break off from the oxygen atom and escape. It's called, it has escape velocity. It will escape the Earth's atmosphere. But what's left is oxygen. So by inhaling oxygen, it's deadly to the COVID-19 virus. Now that's just a simple therapeutic model. And I'm perhaps out of time at this juncture, but let's continue at a later date. My name is Harrison Whitney. My publication, Persistence of Memory, is in the Library of Congress. It has international standard book numbers and barcodes, and it's on Amazon.com. So we'll talk with you a little bit later. Thanks for listening.